Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Jai Om Vishnupad Punamansa Padiprajaka Stotra Satashi Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sakaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadip Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Jamana Mai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande Hari
Hari Hari
Hari.
Bo. Thank you very much, Maharaj. And thank you, Ekendra Prabhu, for lovely kirtan. And thank you, dear devotees, for joining. I see Panchatattva Prabhu was actually offering obeisances on the floor. Jai. Thank you. Hare Krishna. So wonderful. So thank you all for joining. And so tonight we'll continue on the second canto, fifth chapter. And we'll kick off our week with a spiritual note as we dive into the beautiful verses of Lord Narayan. I'll be posting the verse just now. It's 2:5:15. And as always, feel free to participate fully with your comments and questions. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're continuing the discussion of Srimad Bhagavatam, in which we're hearing about a conversation between Narad Muni and Lord Brahma, in which Narada expressed that it seemed to him that Brahma was the supreme person in the universe, but there were doubts about that. I wanted to touch upon one point. Well, first let me offer obeisances. Om Jnana Timidantasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jaina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Jaina Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadhati Shapadantikam. Vandehang Shri Guru Shri Jatapadakamalang Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakan Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Tapta Kamshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hori Priye. Pancha Kolpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Bhyevacha Patita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I wanted to touch upon a point from verse 14. This comes from the commentary of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who says that that Brahma's responses here are replying to points brought up in text 2. the Nard had said, Yad Rupam Yad Adhishtanam, Yata Shrishtam Idam Prabho, Yat Sangstam, Yat Param Yat Chat, Tat Tatvam Vadatatvataha. My dear Father, please describe how is it created, how is it conserved, and under whose control is all this being done? So these are the questions that Narada put to Brahma, and Brahma's answering them. So in text 14, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that Brahma's answering the question, Yat Rupam, what is the form of this universe, or what are its characteristics? And there, we've heard the 5 elementary ingredients of creation, the interactions, time, intuition, svabhava, the nature of the living beings. They're all part of Krishna. So that, he says, is a response to this question, Yat Rupam, what are the characteristics of this universe? So now we find, as Madan Gopal Prabhu hinted, glorification of Lord Narayan. The pure devotees of the Lord never take credit falsely for their supposed accomplishments. They're eager to give credit to the Lord. We find the same thing, I think I mentioned it before, in connection with Yamaraj. When the Yamadutas return from their failed attempt to arrest Ajamil, they disconsolately complained to Yamaraj that we thought you were the supreme person in the universe, that you're the supreme authority in these matters, and yet we've been stopped by these other people who have who challenged us and who don't seem to be working under your authority. So what's going on here? Are you the supreme in charge or not? So Yamaraj was very happy. No, I'm not the supreme. He got the opportunity to glorify the Lord. The opportunity doesn't come that often down there. So he was pleased. So similarly, Lord Brahma is pleased that he's been asked this question, are you the supreme authority? Do you do all of this by your own power? So it's a pleasure for Brahma to admit that, no, it's not my power, it's all the glory of the personality of Godhead. So now he says, Narayana Paraveda Deva Narayanangajaha Narayana Paraloka Narayana Paramakaha. And just to get the sense of this, I'll read the Sanskrit for the next verse too. Narayana Paro Yogo Narayana Parang Tapaha Narayana Parang Jnanam Narayana Paragatihi. So Lord Brahma is glorifying the personality of Godhead, Narayan, who's the source of his own birth. Lord Brahma is called Atmabhu, one who's born of his own self, or self-born. But he's actually born from the personality of Godhead, Narayan. So now he says, Narayana Paraveda. This para is Prabhupada translates variously in the various sections of the verse, but so it can mean different things. It can mean after, in the sense of like Parayana, the focused on, dependent on, meant for, and so on, focused on, para. So Narayana para Veda, the Vedic literature or the Vedic knowledge, is made by and meant for Narayan. And Deva Narayan Angajaha. Anga means Angaja, the assisting hands. The Devas, the demigods, are the assisting hands of the Lord. Narayana Paraloka. And the planets are also meant for the sake of the Lord. And Narayana Paramaka, all sacrifices, Maka, are meant for the Lord. According to the Vedanta Sutras, Shastra Yoni Tvat, the Supreme Lord is the author of all revealed scriptures. And all revealed scriptures are for knowing the Supreme Lord. Vedaischa Sarvaya, Aham Eva Veja. They're all meant for knowing Krishna, not for knowing so many other things. Finally, they're meant for knowing Krishna. Therefore, Bahunam Janmanamante Ganavan, Mam Prapajate. When one comes to the conclusion of knowledge, he surrenders to Krishna, Vasudeva Sarvamiti. The Vedas are made just to revive the forgotten consciousness of the conditioned souls. And any literature not meant for reviving God consciousness is rejected at once by the Narayana Para devotees. Such deluding books of knowledge, not having Narayan as their aim, are not at all knowledge, but are the playgrounds for crows who are interested in the rejected refuse of the world. Any book of knowledge, science, or art must lead to the knowledge of Narayan, otherwise it must be rejected. That is the way of advancement of knowledge. So this is quite true and quite strong, that any literature not meant for reviving God consciousness is ultimately useless. It may be informative, it may be entertaining, it may be sublime, it may be poetic, it may be this, it may be that. But if it doesn't revive our Krishna consciousness, finally, Tadvayasam Tirtham, it's a crow place. The crow place is the place where the rejected, where you throw your leaf plates after you're done with your meal, and the crows come and feast on it. So quite strongly, Srila Prabhupada said, any so-called knowledge, and there's so many, psychology and physics and this and that, all offering knowledge, and yet it's all rejected. Veda means Vedic literature, and Veda means knowledge. So Veda, Narayana Para Veda, real knowledge aims at Narayan. If it's not aimed at Narayan, it's aimed at the illusory energy of Narayan. And it may be higher illusion, lower illusion, better illusion, worse illusion. But if the result is forgetfulness of Krishna, if the result is to be absorbed in something other than Krishna, then it's useless. Playground for crows. That's books of knowledge, science, art. This is really quite terrible. Whatever we're attached to in the literary field, or those of us who love to read, we're being told if it's not for Narayan, it's really just indulgence in illusion. It's indulgence in illusion. The whole internet, with all of the terabytes and terrible bytes of knowledge of this and that and everything, political knowledge, scientific knowledge, knowledge of health, knowledge of this, knowledge of that. Without Narayan, it's all a distraction from the real purpose of life. So Narayana Paraveda, the real purpose of knowledge, or what to speak of books of so-called spirituality, they're terrible. Back in the 1960s, it was Hermann Hesse. I think he's out of style. In the not too long ago, it was, who's that fellow? Oh, we were talking about him the other day. He was discovered to be a fraud. The yucky way of knowing.
Castaneda.
Castaneda, yes. Carlos Castaneda. People are thinking there's really something here. It's really deep. It's really mystical. It's really this, really that. And it was just, first of all, on its own terms, it was a fraud. It was shown to be fictional and really fraud in the true sense of the term. But even if somehow or other those experiences of which he wrote had been genuine, they're still useless because they're not aimed at Narayan. They're aimed at something else. They're aimed at something else. So there's so many such books which come and go, and people are all, some people look toward them for wisdom and spirituality and deep, getting in touch with your inner whatever. But here, no, it's not toward Narayan. It's not toward the personality of Godhead. It's useless. Now, Samarpana says something. To see with right perspective, when sometimes Karmi authors' management technique books are utilized in ISKCON leadership and management as, for example, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, etc. These books are written without devotional paradigm, but for sense gratification. Yeah, so finally, these books won't help us at the time of death. You may be highly effective. There are many highly effective people, but they're also highly defective because they're not Krishna conscious. So Shrama Eva Hi Kevalam, it's all a failure. Now, if we simply become, and Gauranga Prabhu touched upon this last night, that if we're just talking about those fashionable topics and we're not giving the message of Krishna, then we're wasting our time, or we're misleading people. We're missing our duty, which is to glorify Krishna. Now, if you're very expert and you can somehow or other tie this topic or that topic to Krishna, so that the person starts off by hearing about yoga, or by hearing about music, or by hearing about art, or by hearing about politics, or by hearing about some scientific topic, and finally it comes to the point of Krishna consciousness. Well, good, now you've scored the goal. Now you've brought him to the Krishna side. But if we simply become another version of the materialists, then we're wasting our time. So it requires a little sufficient expertise and determination also, and what we call keeping your eye on the ball, that our purpose is not to give a really great seminar on 7 habits or getting in touch with your inner child, or whatever the topic is. That may be, what would you say, have some utility for just attracting someone, but finally you have to deliver. If the day is over and we haven't delivered, then what have we done? So that's if we're going to dovetail these things, then they have to be dovetailed. Otherwise it becomes all tail, no dove, and we're missing. Okay. And if you're expert and you do you can start with some other topic and bring people to the point of Krishna consciousness, well, bravo. The supreme worshipable deity is Narayan. The demigods are recommended secondarily for worship in relation to Narayan, because the demigods are assisting hands in the management of the universal affairs. As the officers of a kingdom are respected due to their relation to the king, the demigods are worshipped due to their relation to the Lord. Without the Lord's relation, worship of the demigods is unauthorized, avidhi purvakam, just as it is improper to water the leaves and branches of a tree without watering its root. Therefore, the demigods are also dependent on Narayan. So it's a simple thing, but revolutionary, especially for our Indian communities. So many are thinking that this God, that God, or the other God, whichever God you like better, whichever God attracts you, whichever God your family worships, it's all the same. Yatamat tatapat, whatever you think, whatever you want. But that's not the conclusion of the Vedic knowledge or of the Bhagavad Gita. We're saying that we're Hindu, but we don't follow Bhagavad Gita. What is the meaning of being Hindu? Or if we're not following Bhagavad Gita, then what are we following? So from the Bhagavad Gita, we understand that the demigods are able to do what they're doing. Tepi mam eva kontiya. The result is actually coming from Krishna. Those who are worshiping the demigods are worshiping Krishna, but in the wrong way. But the demigods are all part of Krishna. Vedaischa sarvar aham eva veja. And no, that's not what I was thinking. Ahamadihi devanam maharshinam jasarvasha. The Lord says, I'm the source of the devas. So we have to accept this on the authority of Bhagavad Gita and not simply go by family tradition or by popular community ideas, or worse, to make it out that these are all myths, that Ganesh is mythological and Shiva is also mythological, Krishna is mythological, everything's mythological. That's also more nonsense. So we have to get things, and then the Christian preachers come and say, you're following all nonsense. You're worshiping so many different gods. You don't even know why you're worshiping all these different gods. Someone's worshiping this one, someone's worshiping that one. You're all fools. You just have a hodgepodge religion. So stop this nonsense and surrender to Jesus, because what you're doing is foolishness. Well, as regarding foolishness, they're right. They're right. In the name of Hinduism, you're doing so many foolish things. This ritual, that ritual, and simply for sense gratification, that also. Kamais taistar rita jnana. You are a fool, rita jnana. Your knowledge has been stolen away by illusion because you're worshiping these demigods to get different material facilities, and you're not recognizing the connection with Narayan. So therefore, yes, the Christian preachers on that account, they're right. Why should we fight with them? No, you're blaspheming our religion. No, you've got our religion exactly right. Our religion is all foolishness because we've invented something and we have our own sentimental ideas, not confirmed by Shastra. Not confirmed by Shastra. So naturally, an intelligent person, when he hears these reasonable arguments, he thinks, well, yeah, maybe I'm wasting my time. Maybe I am just doing a bunch of foolish rituals with no understanding. And then he thinks, well, yes. Of course, then the preacher says, well, now are you going to surrender to Jesus? And he says, well, yeah, maybe. So whose fault is that? It's the fault of the so-called Hindus who are not teaching Bhagavad Gita as it is. Not teaching Bhagavad Gita as it is. Vedaischa sarvara aham Vedya. All the Vedas are meant for knowing Krishna. Aham adiri devanam. There's only one personality of Godhead who's the source of all the other devas. Ekalishwara Krishnar Sabritya. So these things should be understood. Otherwise, the sentimental thing will be knocked off by some reasonably intelligent opponents who see the defectiveness of it and don't see the actual true purpose of the Vedic knowledge. Okay. Now, Samarpan's come back again, and he's got another question or a follow-up. Expertise to present Krishna consciousness in an attractive way using current ideas is one aspect. I wanted to know about using ideas and techniques originating from karmis given by such books in our leadership and management, whether that also can or should be used with expertise. Yeah, I mean, it's not that we're, like, for example, if you want to manage the plumbing in your temple, you're not going to say, well, I'm not going to follow these directions given by karmis. I need a Vaishnav plumber. No, the karmis know plumbing. If you want to know how to do something with the internet, we're not going to say, oh, no, these are karma. You want to go someplace on a bus, say, is the bus driver a Vaishnava? Oh, well, no, I'm not getting on the bus. We can accept these things, practical things, the matters of management and so on. Even Prabhupada said we could learn from, he said, Ramakrishna mission, as far as management goes, they're very good. We can learn from them. Their philosophy is another story, but for management, they're good. They're well managed. So we can learn from so many different places, but finally, our purpose has to be kept in mind, and we need to be careful that we don't take on board other baggage. Like the America, they put a ban on the American government will not buy computers from China. They will not buy computers from China. Absolutely not, because they find sometimes that there are these, innocuous parts of the computer that are listening in on confidential communications. A simple, ordinary part that is innocent and would never harm a flea, but the Chinese have figured out how to use it for some espionage. So then the Americans said, okay, no more computers from China. We're not going to take them. So the idea is that, of course, they've taken that solution, we'll get our computers elsewhere. So we don't want to take on board unwanted things. That's the point. Mundane ideas of psychology and religion and spirituality and relationships and so on that compromise the conclusions of Krishna consciousness. If there's ordinary practical knowledge that we can use for the service of Krishna, fine. We'll, as Prabhupada says, you take gold from a filthy place, no problem. But we don't want to take on board mundane values, mundane misunderstandings, mundane points of view that will undermine our spiritual life or distract us from our spiritual life. That's the point. Panchatattva says, in Guyana, where my wife is from, the pundits come and perform rituals, jugs, that's yagyas, and leave with their donations without explaining anything about the purpose behind such performances. After this has gone on for years and years, the people are easy pickings for Christians who readily point out that they don't even know why they're doing them. Yes, exactly. Exactly. And that's in many countries, even India, and South Africa, and many places. The Hindu preachers are their own worst enemies because they're not preaching anything, or they're just doing business. Jugs, they're doing some jugyas, and you pay me, and that's it. And people ultimately don't get substance there. Okay, Prabin says, where to draw a line that the preaching technique, in quotes, is bringing people to become devotees, or the preaching is beating around the bush. For that, one has to be a little expert, to use a phrase that Prabhupada sometimes used. There was one program done at a particular preaching technique, in a particular teaching technique going on for more than a year, but no one took to chanting. They may say that eventually they take it up. Yeah, so you have to see. Again, it's a question of expertise. One has to be a little expert, and a question of courage also. We finally, sometimes you go through so much trouble to tiptoe and to pussyfoot and to be oh so indirect and gentle so as not to scare people away, and they don't take up anything. And what works is simply laying it on the line. Sometimes we find that people are attracted when you just lay it on the line, and with all the pussyfooting and the indirection and the care taken not to scare people away, they don't get scared away. There's just nothing to attract them because there's no substance. Or we attract people who come and they stay for the material thing that was pitched to them, but it's difficult to bring them beyond that because that's not why they came. We attracted people who were interested in whatever it is, and if you want them to stay, you have to keep feeding them that. They don't cross over. So again, it takes some expertise and maybe some honesty and humility also to look at something. You try something and then you see it doesn't work. There's no result. So that's intelligent also, that, well, we tried this, it didn't work, so we're not going to continue it. Let's do something else. And what has worked, I mean, amazingly, what has become, popular and accepted and attractive and engaging, kirtan. Well, we're looking for something to sort of attract people, to bring them over. Somebody else is directly doing kirtan and gathering thousands of followers. And then we're playing catch up. So there's much to be said for just dutifully putting out what we were paid to put out. Krishna says, here's the message, go out and speak it. So if you go out and speak it, people may throng to you or they may not throng to you, but you put it out there, someone will come. Or not, but you did your duty. And there's also something to be said for more sophisticated or creative techniques if you get the result. And if you don't get unwanted results, because sometimes that happens also, that you may attract some people, but then you get other things that you didn't want. All right, I think that answers the question. And Tulsi Priya wanted to make a comment. You're no sound there, Tulsi.
Yeah, I couldn't unmute. Sorry, Maharaj. Yeah, that what you were just saying about people who are, giving the straight stuff. I had an experience like that when I had been practicing Krishna consciousness for only about 2 years, and I was running a preaching center. It started out my husband and I running a preaching center, and then he was needed elsewhere, and so I was doing it by myself, and it was extremely challenging. And I was, trying to be delicate and not scare anybody away. And then some devotees who were doing traveling Sankirtan, a ladies' party, came through, and there was a senior devotee there. I don't think she was a Prabhupada disciple, but she'd been around since the 70s or early 80s. And she was hard as nails. And of course, she was going to give the class that evening because she was the senior devotee. And I was a little worried. And I was in the kitchen cooking. And every once in a while, I would stick my head out, and she was preaching very, very strongly. And I was like, oh my God, these people are going to go away and never come back. And then finally, when the class was over, they were thronging around her like she was a rock star. They couldn't get enough of her. And it was such a big lesson for me, because I was so worried as how, on how she was going to affect people. And they ate it up. I don't know how many people became devotees, but they all came back the next time. And it was a big lesson, but she was completely uncompromising and just gave the straight sauce. And it was great to see.
Great. We could, of course, do a whole seminar on this topic. And again, there are those, we know that in Hong Kong, for example, they've for many years done a yoga program, and all the people who became devotees through their yoga program. And you can't really argue with that. You can't argue with success. So they successfully have used that method and brought people to Krishna consciousness. But that doesn't mean that everything brings people to Krishna consciousness. What works in one environment doesn't work in another, or what's needed in one environment. Yes, if you're going to be preaching in Egypt, for example, you might not want to be quite as bold and straightforward, and you may need a more subtle approach. Maybe not even in what you say, but in how you package it. So there are special places, and there are special things that need to be done. But there's so much to be said for what we call the straight sauce. The same thing is there. Rather entertaining article, and the Christian preachers were going crazy figure out how to make Christianity cool, and they were doing sort of, what was it, like folk cafes and this, that, and the other thing. And then this is like the 1960s, 1970s. And what finally catches on is like evangelical Christianity, as in praise the Lord and all of that. The same thing was noted by a sociologist, Rodney Stark, big American sociologist, about the Methodists in contrast to the Episcopalians. The Methodists were embarrassingly direct and straightforward and so on. And so much so that the Episcopalians were scoffing at them and saying that, so many things. And yet they were the ones who attracted people in droves. And it was the same thing, being very direct, very straight, very out there. So again, there's room for different approaches, but we have to see if you're going to do something different, then that different should be effective. Otherwise, if you do the same old thing, the same old uninventive, uncreative, standard thing, it may succeed or not succeed, but you did what you were supposed to do. You did what you were supposed to do. So at least that. But But the intelligent and empowered preacher will see, how do we bring people to the service of Krishna? I think we've sort of followed that tangent as long as we need to. And coming back to the verse or the purport, the lokas, Narayana para loka. The lokas, or different planets, are attractive because they have different varieties of life and bliss, partially representing the Satchidananda Vigraha. Everyone wants the eternal life of bliss and knowledge. In the material world, such an eternal life of bliss and knowledge is progressively realized in the upper planets. That means you get some of it, not quite eternal. But after reaching there, one is inclined to achieve further progress along the path back to Godhead. Duration of life, with a proportionate quantity of bliss and knowledge, may be increased from one planet to another. One can increase the duration of life to thousands and hundreds of thousands of years in the highest planet, in different planets, but nowhere is there eternal life. But one who can reach the highest planet, that of Brahma, can aspire to reach the planets in the spiritual sky where life is eternal. Therefore, the progressive journey from one planet to another culminates in reaching the supreme planet of the Lord, Madhama, where life is eternal and full of bliss and knowledge. So that's, we read about that in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, where Gopkumar is on his journey exploring different planets, different parts of the universe, and he's seeing it's better and better and better. But finally, he sees that the supreme goal is the abode of the Lord. And when he's traveling beyond the limits of the universe, he looks back on all the places he'd visited before and thinks, oh, what was I, how foolish was I that I was attracted to this and that and this and that. Even liberation, he looks back and says, I was, attracted to that. So various degrees of happiness and longevity and so on are achievable in the material world because they're all, the material planets are all extensions of the Lord's opulence. But finally, the goal is Narayana. All different kinds of sacrifice are performed just to satisfy Lord Narayan with a view to reach him. And the best sacrifice recommended in this age of Kali is Sankirtan Yajna, the mainstay of the devotional service of a Narayana Para devotee. Harir Nama, Harir Nama, Harir Nama Eva Kevalam, Kalo Nastyeva, 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 Gatiranyata. So this is Narayana Paramukha. The goal of sacrifices is Narayan. And as Panchatattva brought up, people are just doing rituals, not knowing what is the point? What is the point of this ritual? Why are we doing it? Krishna asked Nanda Maharaj, why are you doing this yajna? What is the purpose? Is this found in Shastra? Well, my dear boy, this is more or less traditional, and we do this because we have to satisfy Indra, because he's in charge of the clouds and rains. Forget Indra. Forget Indra. Our relationship is with the cows and Vrindavan and Govardhan Hill. So, Sarvadharman Parityaja Mamekam Sharanam Praja. Finally, this is the real purpose of sacrifice, to satisfy Krishna. And in Kali Yuga, these best yajna, the only yajna that will be effective is Sankirtan Yajna, Harir Nama, Harir Nama. One well-known international devotee who commented something to the effect, there's been one Prabhupada disciple doing Sankirtan in front of a college for decades, but the question is, how many became devotees? Probably no one took to Krishna consciousness. What about the direct preaching, which is not bringing devotees? It may not bring devotees. Of course, it may or may not be effective. First thing is, we have to, what is that? We have to perform our duty. It may be successful or it may not be successful. Prabhupada, in his early attempts in Krishna consciousness, in spreading Krishna consciousness in the West, didn't really attract anyone. No one came in Butler, Pennsylvania, and became a devotee. And in so many ways, there was not really a reward. But Prabhupada took it. This is my duty. This is my duty. I heard Prabhupada speak in a big hall where no one came. You know, the engagement was arranged at Marsh Chapel of Boston University, but it was exam time. So practically no one came. And still Prabhupada spoke. So that confidence was there on Prabhupada's part, that the Sankirtan is the right thing. Speaking the message of Krishna is the right thing to do. But let me do it. And the result will come. It may come today, it may come tomorrow. But simply, well, it's not working, let me do something else. There's no guarantee that your something else will work. And you can wind up losing the thread, losing the main thing, and becoming distracted by your something else. And still not able to bring people, or bringing people who are not serious, not interested, and who don't really take it up. And who would say, Panchatattva says, that all those students who heard the holy name from that devotee were not benefited? Exactly, that's our duty. That's our duty. It's not that because something else will make us more popular, we're going to do the more popular thing. That's Prabhupada always said that we're not meant for just adjusting to what they think will be, what we think they'll be interested in. We have to present, finally, the substance. And if you can do it attractively, so much the better. But even if it's done imperfectly, even if it's done crudely, I may have told this story before. I was in an airport with Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada was departing. And while we were sitting in the lounge, we have one godbrother who speaks very loudly and very strongly, and really just speaks on and on about Krishna consciousness to anyone and like as if he's on a soapbox. And I was watching. This devotee had buttonholed one businessman, I think, a business traveler. And he was, the devotee was going on about Krishna and Bhagavad Gita and so many topics of Krishna consciousness. And the businessman was trying to explain as gently as possible that he hadn't come to the airport to hear the doctrines of this, whatever it was that you might want to present. But the devotee was going on, and I'm sitting in my chair, like shrinking, like, oh my God, whatever happened to tact, whatever happened to, finesse, and how crude this is, and oh man. And then I looked over to Srila Prabhupada, and Prabhupada was enjoying like anything. Prabhupada was enjoying like anything. So we may be sophisticated, or we may be crude, we may be clever, or we may be very simple. But but let us present Krishna. Let us present Krishna. and the worst thing is doing nothing. We're so unsure about whether I should do it this way or that way that we don't do anything. But if it's been in the Bible also, there's several quotations. You are the salt of the earth. Someone can find this one. If the salt loses its savor, essentially what use is it? If you've got salt and it's not salty, what's the use of it? Elsewhere he says, you're the light of the world. Don't hide your candle under a basket. So the same issue came up in his mission when he was president, that don't hide it, put it out there, and somebody will take it. Those who are, otherwise you're so busy trying to present things in such a way that it doesn't look like Krishna consciousness, so that those who are actually looking for Krishna consciousness can't find it. They can't find it. But the people who find you are the people who are not really interested in anything more than the mundane topics that you're going to talk about. So you're like the man who lost his caste and still he's hungry. Okay, let's see. There's still a couple comments. Yes, and Samarpan says that the person who went out chanting created much bhakti sukriti in the hearts of hearers and appreciators. Yes, Prabhupada, I told this story before, that Prabhupada said that you would go out to the chanting on the street corner and people will say, what this nonsense is doing. But then because the man is hearing you every day, and one day he says, this nonsense is good, let me become nonsense like this also. Can we say that we try our best to do sankirtan in a way which will lead to appreciation of the most of the public around, or at least not to create negativity in most of the public, or avoid doing it in a forceful way? Srila Prabhupada really wasn't, I have to say, that he didn't give much attention to that. He wasn't really that concerned about seeing that we were being very gentle and not putting anyone off. And no, he was really much more interested in seeing that we were out there and trying our best to approach people and to give them the message of Krishna. This is always, you want to distribute a book to people, you're disturbing them. If you want to distribute a book to someone, you have to disturb them. Well, that's not nice. I don't want to disturb people. And I certainly don't want a person to say, hey, you're disturbing me. And so what do? I keep, I stay home, or I keep the book in the bag, or I wait for someone to come over and ask me what we're all about. But we see that those who are effective go out and disturb people. We're meant for that. The kirtan also disturbs people. The police will come and say, hey, you're creating a disturbance. Well, yes, that's what we're here for. Now it's appreciated in business. I think disruptive has become a buzzword. To be disruptive is seen as good. Well, we're disruptive. We're trying to disrupt the routine of nations. Yes, we are. We admit that. And we may be a little less than expert. We may be a little less than gentle. We may be a little less than tactful sometimes, but we have an urgent message. Like Prabhupada spoke about the person who's flying a kite on the roof, and someone's just about to fall off. The man's just about to fall off, and someone yells at him, "Hey!" Well, perhaps he should have said, "Well, excuse me, sir, but have you noticed that No, you have to shout loud. That's what you do in such circumstances." Now, that's not to say that tact doesn't have its value and that we shouldn't learn how to be polite or gentle or empathic, or many other good qualities that will help us in spreading Krishna consciousness. But finally, since it was asked, what I saw was that Prabhupada was pleased when we went out there and tried to do it. And we might be gentle or not so gentle, we might be appreciated or not so appreciated, but he wanted us out there. And that's what has spread the Krishna consciousness movement. It's not that we're just, it's been spread by going out there and doing it. Yes, Sharanagati says, you can still have good manners, but not worry about what people think of you when presenting Krishna consciousness. Yes, Prabhupada said a Krishna conscious person will be a perfect gentleman. A devotee should have natural humility, good manners, cleanliness, truthfulness, concern for others. People will see these are nice people. At least a fortunate person will see, oh, these people are nice. These people are nice. But this is what we're supposed to do. We may respectfully, Samarpan says, respectfully disturb people while trying to spread Krishna consciousness. That's Prabodhananda Saraswati, I think his prayer is there, his verse is there, that, my dear sir, I'm falling at your feet hundreds of times. I'm putting straw in the street in my mouth, and you're begging you, hey, Sadhava, you're a great saintly person. You're very intelligent, highly educated, all good qualities. Now, please give up all your nonsense and surrender to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Again, I'm not arguing for crudeness. I'm not arguing for, what's the word? For crudeness. Yeah, Prabodhananda Saraswati. Holding straw between my teeth, I fall at your feet, and with hundreds of supplications I say, dear sirs, throw away everything and devote yourself to the feet of Sri Chaitanya Chandra. Yes. So again, not for crudeness and not for rejecting some carefully thought out scheme that may be less than direct and still bring people to Krishna consciousness. It's not for bashing some approach other than our own, but it's for saying that there's so much value in just getting out there. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, chant Hare Krishna, give people these books. Simple thing. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. 9 o'clock sharp. Hare Krishna.
Jai. Hare Krishna. The best way to end anything. The Maha Mantra. Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you, dear devotees, also for a very engaging discussion. And thank you, Maharaj, for taking us deeper and deeper into the content of Srila Prabhupada's purports and how to apply them in our lives. So as always, I'll just do the regular announcements. Maharaj, are we having the Thursday session? It's Thanksgiving. I'm still going to do our Ishtagoshti. I think we're still doing it, right? Just want to confirm.
Our Ishtagoshti is Thanksgiving Day, isn't it?
Yes. So I just wanted to see if we're still doing it, or I'll just put it.
I hadn't really thought about it, to tell you the truth, but what do you recommend?
I'm not sure. It depends on the devotees who join and whether they'll be doing other things or otherwise engaged. But if everyone's locked down, it doesn't matter. Not sure.
Yeah, that's a question I should have asked them last Thursday, I suppose. I guess I'm out of touch with the world.
And maybe we could just make a decision and just announce it on the Facebook group that we'll not be having it, or we will be having it. Either way, so we can decide by tomorrow whatever.
I don't even know. I think we'll go ahead.
Okay.
And if we have a low turnout, maybe we'll do something other than our 4 rules, which is our present mini seminar.
Yeah,
But
sure.
we'll-
I think if we can have a Thanksgiving themed
we'll be there. I'm not planning to go someplace and put on a pilgrim's hat or do any of that kind of stuff. So we'll do our
Okay.
we'll do our usual program, and if not so many people show up, we'll tailor it accordingly.
Okay.
We'll do some, then we'll have our own very exclusive program for the day. But let's just carry on.
Okay, so we'll keep it then. Okay, so then, dear devotees, if you're already coming, or if you haven't come, this is a good time to start to join the Thursday evening program. This is at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 hour prior to this program. Every Thursday on this separate Zoom channel, which you can find on Maharaj's website, jswami.info. So please do join. And then this Saturday, we'll have one more session of this Vrindavan Mellow series I've been doing with His Grace Madhavananda Prabhu. So the Saturday morning at 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time, which is 7:30 p.m. in India. Please join on the Bhakti Center Zoom channel. Our week on this channel is somewhat shortened because we won't be having a Thursday session for Thanksgiving, but we will have a Tuesday session. So, of course, we have Monday, Wednesday, Friday with the Maharaj on the second canto, and we'll continue that. Tuesday, which is tomorrow, we'll have Her Grace Radha Dasi, and she'll be talking about the lessons to be learned from the pastime of what the Brahmanas' wives knew about Lord Krishna. So it's an interesting topic. And on Sunday evening, we'll have His Holiness Bhakti Rasamrita Swami Maharaj. So please be joining for those sessions. So it's a little bit shorter week, but we'll still have lots of nectar available. So thank you all very much for joining, and I can wish you all Hare Krishna. And you may unmute yourself at this point. Say Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj.
I just wanted to add, while I'm thinking of it, that Vyasadeva got bashed by Narada for not coming out and delivering the goods.
That's true.
Narada himself felt, Vyas himself felt, something's wrong here. And Narada said, well, you haven't glorified Krishna. You've beat around the bush, this way, that way, and the other way. Let's get on with it. So then he wrote Srimad Bhagavatam. Then.
Jai. Wonderful.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you.
All.
Thank you very much, Maharaj.
Jaya.
Thank you, Gurudev.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj. Dandavat, Hari Bol.
Hari Hari.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Dandavat, Jayadvaita Swami ki jai.
Hi.
Samaveta Bhakta. This must be Doug. Hare Krishna.
Doug attended a Bhaktivedanta Institute conference just the other day.
Oh.
It was held via, it was a virtual conference, and Doug was the last speaker in the conference.
Oh.
Lord Anita, somebody's resting their DTs or doing something.
Yes, Dear Govind Prabhu. Hari Bol.
Haribol, Prabhu.
Thank you, Maharaj. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jayadvaita Swami Maharaj ki jai. Samveta Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Hari Bol.
Gaur Premanande.
Hari Bol.